going on, guys? It's Cricket TMG and I'm back with a brand new video. This time it's the AOR GT3 Elite Championship round 4 from a very wet Brands Hatch, and this race I was pretty skeptical of going into it because the conditions seemed to change from session to session in practice, and yeah, it was so up and down. 1 minute you could sort of be running a certain time and then you could be like 3 seconds slower, and that's just because obviously with Project Cars 2 and the live track, I think it's live track 2.0, 1.0, whatever they've called it, really does make the track evolve, and the evolution of the track makes it pretty hard to actually practice for. So yeah, it was a bit of a lottery, and this was probably my best and worst qualifying session all rolled up into one. It was pretty crazy, pretty funny actually, but yeah, it was a good race. So yeah, let's see how we got on in qualifying. So you could pretty much see how wet it was already. Conditions really tough, but I mean, you know, it's something different. Can't always be racing in the dry, and the puddles really could catch you out. So you have to be very careful when doing your laps. But this is me starting my first lap, and I just completely understeer off. So before I even get to the finish line, I've already dropped it. So back to the pits again. Obviously I went back out again to start another lap, and had to let some cars get past, but I wasn't too sure if the grip was going to be there, because obviously at the start of the session, when it rains on this game, obviously the track gets wetter and wetter, as opposed to other games where the conditions are just the same. So I wasn't sure if I'd already missed a window just by spinning off. So I had to sort of try and push. I didn't even quite know what times I was actually aiming for at the minute, because in practice, I mean, full fuel, early on in the session I managed like a 26.1, and sometimes you can go into quali, and if you don't get out straight away, then you'll be stuck in the 30s. And you see there, we've gone off again. So still not having got a lap in, 10 minutes left in the session, and I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't feeling nervous. I didn't really feel the pressure. I was actually laughing at myself at this stage, because I couldn't believe I dropped it so many times. And yeah, it was all I wanted to do really was just get a banker lap in, just so I know that I won't be starting dead last. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what I was doing. At the same time, every time I was going off, I was still learning things about the circuit, still learning where the puddles were. So at least I can like attribute that to when I actually can get a lap in. But you see here, as I come off that curb, I just get on the puddle and it sends me sideways, hit the other puddle, and yeah, straight into the wall. So back to the pits again, 5 minutes left, and I just got in a banker lap on the lap before this. It put me in 5th, but obviously we thought we could definitely qualify a lot higher than that. And we put in another lap there, 30.3, that puts us 4th. So we're still, I mean, on the second row, but I knew that I definitely had pace enough to get pole. So I just kept on pushing, and this is I think it's going to be my best lap that I actually end up doing. But you can see now as the times are coming down, 2 minutes ago I'm back down to 5th place. So yeah, I had to sort of string a lap together, and hopefully I can do something half decent. Pretty tricky this first corner. If you just brake too late, you just go out wide and you hit the puddle on the exit, and it just drags you into the sand. So you had to be pretty careful. I didn't get to the apex as quick as I'd like to on that corner. Tried to take sort of an early apex. I like to keep really tight. There was a puddle on the inside of that corner, but I think just with how many cars were on circuit, it must have sort of cleared the water there. And obviously this is on the exit of this corner is where I spun before, where I just got in the puddles. But you see, we learnt from that, and we just stay well clear of that side of the track, go straight across towards the middle of the track, making sure we don't hit any puddles, because once you hit a puddle in this game, there's nothing you can do. You're going off. So yeah, I wasn't too sure whether to take this corner in 4th or keep it in 3rd, but we went down to 3rd because I just felt just give us a little bit more pull towards the corner. Hit that apex nicely, and pretty decent lap so far, about 7/10 up, so we knew we were on for a pretty decent lap. Could have taken more of that curb there, to be honest, would have allowed us to get on their power a little bit quicker, but here's where we probably lose a 1/10.5. We just understeer a little bit, don't get anywhere near the apex, and yeah, it just felt pretty slow, to be honest. I don't think I did the last corner all that well either, to be honest. It took me quite long to get on the power, but still was going to be a pretty big improvement on the lap. Obviously the track conditions were getting better, and we managed a 29.6, and that's put us into second position, so on the front row of the grid. But I still knew there was loads of time to find, loads of time. I could just feel it in the car. I should have been going quicker. And you see that we managed a tight apex there, a little bit better than we did before, and you can see how we got in the power, that we're just gaining more and more time. That didn't feel like a great curb, to be honest. I didn't exactly nail that, but still, as you can see, we're almost 4 tenths up, and we understeer here, but we still carry a decent amount of speed through this corner. So you can see 2 tenths up, so we're still on for maybe a pole position. And it's just trying to keep focused, trying to keep the lap together, take this corner quite nicely as Sissivoma goes even quicker. So now we're feeling the pressure a little bit, but just there we missed the braking board. Someone had somehow knocked it down, even though it's well off the track, and I ended up cutting the corner. So I just pretty much gave up the lap, because you can't really you can't do a lap when you've sort of taken that much out of the track. So yeah, in the end we ended up second on the grid, which wasn't too bad, but I wasted so many laps and so many opportunities to get in a better time. But as you can see here, as per usual with AOR, we got the manual rolling start, and this time at least I'm starting just with one person in front of me, so I've got a pretty clear track in front of me. It's a lot easier than when you're starting in the mid pack, trying to make sure that you're not sort of hitting the car in front or something like that. So Sissivoma gets a good jump, and we managed to hold our position in second position. Turn 1 is going to be pretty difficult. The way I set my car up for this race was pretty much, I set my car up towards the midpoint of this race. So it's set, the race is about an hour, but we've got time progression on ×2. So I sort of, I put the time to what the time would be in the middle of the race. So that's what my car was more set up for. So at the beginning I was really struggling with grip, and I knew I'd be struggling with grip, but managed to hold second position. You can see Sissavoma's already pulling the gap out on us, and we're just going to try and stay consistent, try and keep up with him as much as we can until our car comes to us a little bit more, and see what we can do, because obviously it's pretty hard to stick right behind someone when it's wet. Obviously you got the spray that kicks up in your face, so if I could have kept a gap how it is now, that would be pretty fine. But I was just sort of glad to just not be in the mid pack, and it just makes the race so much easier when you're not having to think, oh, where am I going to get past this guy and stuff like that. So yeah, CJ had managed to make his way up into third. I think he started 5th or 6th, I'm not too sure. Okay, he'd managed to make his way up into third already, and applying pressure to me. So it was pretty tough to think how I'm going to keep CJ behind, but I know this is a really difficult track to overtake, so it's more about just not making a mistake. If you make a mistake, then obviously it's a lot easier to give up your position. But overtaking on this track is pretty hard in the dry, and probably made slightly easier in the wet, but still, you still have to go some way to get past someone on this track. I'd say it's more if someone makes a mistake or a small error on one of the corner exits, then it will always give you an opportunity. But other than that, it's pretty difficult to pass. Even with the Ferrari having a straight line speed advantage, the straights are just not long enough. And yeah, there's not enough slow corners, I think, and braking zones to actually put a move on someone. But you can see Sissavoma still just pulling the gap, and we just don't have the grip at the moment. We just do not have the grip at the moment, and I didn't want to push too hard and just make a mistake, because I knew I didn't want to end up behind just a bunch of cars. So we're just trying to keep it as consistent as we can and do the pace that we can do in the car for the grip that we've got at the moment. I know the car will get better around the midpoint of the race, so I'll just have to sort of hope that Sissavoma's pace drops off, and hope that CJ's pace drops off, and see how we get on. But obviously not easy in conditions like this. You just got to stay focused. Even just braking too close to the grass will spit you off. So it's pretty tricky conditions. And I think Brands Hatch is kind of a tricky track. It's not one of my personal favourites. I don't really care for Brands Hatch too much, but is a circuit that once you get in the groove, then it can feel quite nice. It's just not typically my sort of circuit, but yeah, managing to keep consistent at the moment. No mistakes as yet, but Sistevoma's still pulling that gap out. Got a comfortable lead at the moment, and our pace is just up and down at the moment. We're managing not to make any mistakes, but with the weather conditions how they are, it really does, every lap feels different to the lap before. You never really feel that static sort of weather conditions that you used to get on Project Cars 1. If you put it to rain, then every lap will be exactly the same, and do you know what I mean? It's a lot different on this game, and 1 minute you can feel like you've got loads of grip, and then you go into your next lap and then there's just no grip on a certain corner. And that's what it was like. It was a learning process every time you went around the track, so pretty good. I like the way they've implemented that into the game, and I could definitely feel the differences. My lap times were very up and down, but credit to Sistevoma, his lap times were pretty consistent, kept it in a 1 minute 30s pretty much almost every lap, so he was really hard to hang on to. Sometimes I'll be able to go quicker, but most of the time his consistency was really paying off for him. So yeah, credit to him. He probably had a very good setup on his car, a very good drive by him, and we was just trying to see if we could break away from CJ, but CJ seemed to be hanging on to us pretty comfortably, so it seemed as if it wasn't going to be a question of pace. It's just going to be a question of whether you're going to make a mistake or not. And in conditions like this, it's not going to be too hard to make a mistake. It's not going to be too hard to catch a puddle that wasn't there a couple of laps earlier, so I just tried to stay focused the best I could. But you see CJ still sticking with us. Sistevoma's built a pretty comfortable lead, and going into lap 9, just brake on the grass a little bit and the back end steps around, and I tried to hold it as best as I could, and yeah, managed to not spin, but obviously I've lost second position now, so that was the first mistake really, and it definitely cost us pretty much straight away. Lap car behind us had a pretty big gap behind us, so now we're behind CJ, and just got to try and stick to CJ now and see if we can catch back up, because obviously I was expecting the car to get better and better. So skipping forward now onto lap 15, and pretty much haven't really made any serious inroads into CJ, lapping a pretty similar pace. We've actually started to peg Sistevoma as well. He's not getting away as quick as he was before, and we're sort of pegging his pace at the moment, and this was sort of the stage where I was expecting my car to sort of come good. So yeah, it was annoying we lost second position, but at the same time our pace at the moment was pretty good. About 9 seconds behind the leader, 9.5 seconds, and we'll see if we can sort of keep within that sort of range and hopefully try and pull the gap back. CJ was doing quite well as well. He was sort of matching the leader's pace, and my pace was a bit up and down, but getting a 30.3 on the last lap pace, not too bad to be fair. And it was pretty much us. We created a pretty big gap between everyone else, everyone behind us. I'm pretty sure there was some sort of drama to the reason why the gap was so big. It was pretty close in qualifying, so yeah, not the most exciting race for me at the time, but I was just trying to concentrate on trying to just hunt CJ down and see how close I could get to Sistevoma, seeing if his times would dramatically drop off, because in practice that had happened to me before. Sort of all of a sudden my times would just be 2-3 seconds a lap slower, so anything was possible. The conditions are always changing, it just pretty much does depend on how you set your car up. I did a race around Sugo in the Porsche, and at one stage I was lapping about 2 seconds quicker than everybody else, and at another stage I was losing 3 seconds a lap, so you know, you can never be too sure. I think I made a small mistake again, so I end up losing even more time on the leader, so the gap's out to about 14 seconds. CJ must have made a mistake also, because his gap's out to about 10 seconds. So yeah, it was I mean, it wasn't my most consistent race, but I'm still in the podium position, so I'm not going to complain too much. We've pretty much sort of nailed the podium position in every race barring one. So yeah, I mean, in that sense we've done pretty well in the Audi, but at the same time we've had potential to do so much better. And you can see now on the last lap we did like a 37, so obviously we lost about 7 seconds on the last lap, so we had a pretty poor lap. But this was sort of the stage of the race where my car was really coming alive. I've just felt like I had just so much grip, so I was just gonna start pushing and just see what can happen. Closest car behind me is about 7, 8 seconds behind me, so I felt like even if I did sort of make a mistake, I'm probably not going to lose too much as long as I don't put it into the barrier. But you can see on this lap we're about 7, 8 tenths up, coming into the last corner, and yeah, we're going to do a pretty good lap here. A lot faster than I'd been before. I think, what was it, 29.4 or something? Yeah, 29.4. So yeah, I managed to put in a pretty good lap there, and it was like almost a second quicker than I'd been before. So at this point in the race, we can tell we're really flying. We were 14 seconds behind Sisavoma and pretty much taking a second and a half out of him. So this was sort of the stage where the car was coming alive. I just wish I hadn't made the mistakes earlier on, because we could have been so much closer if we didn't make a mistake. But that's why you got to keep consistent. That's why it's really important. And closing CJ down again here, and yeah, he's only about 2.5 seconds in front of us. So you can see us, we're up on a 29 again. So obviously we're traveling pretty quickly on this lap as well. And yeah, car felt good. Track wasn't too bad either. But as I say that, as we get to this corner, we turn in and there's just no grip. The grip's just completely gone, and we end up dropping it again. And that was at a crucial part of the race, because this is where I felt like I was flying. I felt the car was rapid, and yeah, you can just see then you can never underestimate the conditions. It felt so grippy for the first part of that lap, and obviously on the lap before where we went pretty quick. But as I tried to turn into that corner, there was just nothing. There was just nothing there. And understeered wide straight off the track, got a little bit into the gravel, and we put us round. And yeah, now we've sort of lost all that time to CJ again. And at this point I just felt like I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to push it anymore, because every time I really start pushing I end up making a mistake, and it's very easy to do. So yeah, I don't think I've done a race on this game without spinning it. It's been sort of that difficult at times. It's pretty hard game not to make a mistake. But yeah, obviously for me, I was pretty much thinking I'm not getting my hopes up on catching anybody in front of me. Just wanted to secure my podium position at the time, because you know, at the very least I need to be scoring podiums. Championships are a long shot. Sisavoma's pretty far out in front, I think. I'm not sure, it might be about 13 points or something like that. So pretty big gap, and only 2 races after this race. So yeah, unless he has a DNF or something like that, it's looking pretty good for him. But as I said, going into the season, I wasn't actually expecting to be challenging, because I knew that it's going to be very hard to beat fast guys in a Ferrari. So pretty tough. But I just wanted to pretty much use this season as a test season, just to see how close I could get with the Audi, because it is a car I enjoy driving more than the other GT3. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with my car choice. I like the Audi. I like the way it handles. I like the way it sounds. But yeah, it was pretty difficult race. It was difficult with the conditions, but for me it was probably a little bit boring. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of Brands Hatch. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of tracks that's on the calendar for this season. I just feel like they just don't really promote racing. It's sort of wait for the guy in front to make a mistake sort of tracks, instead of tracks where we can really go wheel to wheel. But it's the same for everybody. Some people like the tracks, obviously. Me personally, I would have liked to seen some more newer tracks that weren't on PCARS 1. I mean, we did Algarve last week, which is a pretty good race and a new track to the calendar for us. But we've done Spa lots of times. We've done done Imola before. Obviously we've got Monza coming up, we've got Laguna Seca coming up, tracks that we've done loads of times on PCARS 1, so it would have been nice to have more sort of new tracks added to the list instead of sort of the bog standard ones that we're all so used to. But I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, for me at this point in the race, it was just trying to make sure no one from behind catches me up. But obviously I started putting a gap out again, because obviously we had quite a big gap before the spin, so we knew we definitely had the pace to pull away. But at this stage it was more just, let's not make any more mistakes, let's just bring it home, because I mean it's been a tough race already. We've made so many mistakes, we've spun countless times in quali, we've already spun once, twice, 3 times in the race, so right about now it's just, let's just keep it as steady as we can. We don't need any more mistakes, because if I was to spin again, then I would probably lose 3rd position, and I wanted that podium. So yeah, Sisivoma's still keeping pretty consistent out the front, and CJ's closed in to within 6 seconds, so Sisivoma must have had a mistake somewhere, because I'm sure that gap was out sort of upwards of 10 seconds, so I think even Sisivoma's made a mistake somewhere on the track. You see CJ's close to within sort of 5.5, 6 seconds. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing about staying consistent. If I had stayed consistent, obviously a mistake for the leader would have put us right there where we were in the race before we even had the first spin, only about 6 seconds behind. So just little things like that, things definitely need to work on, but obviously that's just going to come with time, and hopefully you can sort of iron these mistakes out of the races. I'm making mistakes in every race at the moment. I think I made a mistake in every race of the season so far, so yeah, pretty bad by my standards, but we're still managing to get podium positions, still managing to score decent points. At the moment I think we're 2nd in the championship without actually, I don't even think I've led a race yet. Yeah, without actually leading the race, we're still 2nd in the championship. So I mean, our finishing positions haven't been too bad, but the races haven't gone the way I would like them to. Haven't been as consistent as I've wanted to, and I definitely have got nowhere near my potential in like quality and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, definitely something we have to work on in future. But you can see here we're just sort of just cruising at this point. Just cruising. Conditions are just off and on. 1 minute track feels fine, next minute there's sort of no grip, so I just wanted to just stop pushing, just completely stop pushing and just stroke it home. And you can see we're only about 3.5 seconds in front of the car behind us, so we can't afford to slack off too much, but just enough to make sure we're not going to push the car over the edge. And yeah, as I said, last few laps, since I made that second mistake, it was just pretty boring. It's just me by myself, trying to concentrate, trying not to make mistakes. Sometimes it can get like that in a race, and obviously it's not the best for viewing, but I mean, it is what it is. I'd prefer to be racing wheel to wheel and stuff like that, but when you're in this sort of stage in the race, this is probably the easiest time you can make a mistake, because you've got, it's like I feel like I have so much time to think, because I'm not racing anybody, so it's very easy to make mistakes. You can see we understeer wide as we're coming up to a lapped car, and just for me, I would have liked to have been sort of a lot closer to some of the other cars, but obviously it didn't work out that way, and we didn't really get any battles. I feel like this season so far there hasn't really been any proper battles at the front. It's either been one person pulling away or one person making a mistake, and we haven't had one race where we've had to race right to the end, like right at the front. I think the only race I had was Imola with Kung Jarnix, where we sort of took it right to the end for the podium positions or for second position or whatever it was. But other than that, there hasn't really been any races where the race has lasted sort of all the way to the end of the race. So yeah, I mean, it would be a lot better if sort of we can get sort of some of the season 7 sort of races where it was just everyone just going hammer and tongs, and anyone from sort of 3, 4, 5 drivers could win it. But yeah, it is what it is, and just forwarded it pretty much to the last lap because nothing was really happening in my race. Just me, as I said, me going around by myself trying to keep consistent. But another podium position on the offering, so I'll definitely take it. I would have taken it before the race, so definitely take it after. And Sissivoma wins another race. That's 3 out of 4. CJ in second place, me coming home in third. And yeah, we managed to finish ahead of Kung Jarnix by a few positions, so that's definitely us up into second place in the championship. So not going to complain too much about how the race went, because obviously it could have been a lot worse. So yeah, that was round 4 at Brands Hatch. Next round is Laguna Seca, another track that I'm not really, it's just never been one of my tracks, never been one of my favourites. It's one of them tracks that I will only really do it when there's a league race. If there's no league race and I'm sort of just online, I always trying to avoid Laguna Seca. Same with like, there's just a ton of tracks I don't like. Nordschleife I'm not a fan of. Sort of the other a lot of the tracks that people love I generally don't really like. But yeah, we'll see how we get on in the next race. Hopefully I don't bin it on the curb like I did last season. And yeah, it will be, or hopefully it should be a pretty good race. I think the patch possibly could be out for PS4, so let's see how that sort of mixes up the field. But yeah, sorry for the late upload, very busy today, but yeah, I should be back on schedule next week. So if you want more videos, like and subscribe. Also hit the notifications bell. It's Cryptic TMG. Peace.